Hey, mighty men of God, Dr. Joe Martin here with Real Men Connect, where we help good men become great men God's way by giving them real answers to real problems in the real world. Guys, we're doing the Real Men Ride Along. I'm just leaving a speaking engagement. I just spoke to a group of men at a church in Dalton, Georgia. So I thought I'd shoot this quick video to give a great message. Who I think will be a great message to you guys who are out there who are leaders, but feel a little bit ill-equipped to lead, thinking that you may not have what it takes or have the right stuff to be able to lead other men. I'm here to tell you that you do, okay? Here to remind you that you have more power than you think. I want to share a quick story with you. When I was back in college and I was getting ready to transfer to a four-year school, I had just gotten my AA degree and I was going to the University of West Florida, a four-year school. And on that campus of University of West Florida, there's approximately 9,500 students, close to 10,000 students. And there weren't many students of color, let's put it that way, at the school. I was the only, matter of fact, I was the only African-American male in all of my classes. And so I felt a little bit intimidated being on campus because I didn't know if I'll be able to connect with anyone, if I'll be able to relate to anyone, if I'll be able to make any friends or, you know, kind of fit in. But when I was walking on campus, a little bit nervous and timid, I heard a voice from this bush. You gotta hear me on this. I'm telling you the truth. This is from a bush, not a burning bush, but I heard a voice from a bush, or at least behind a bush. And it said, "Young man." I heard the voice say, "Young man, young man." So it sounded like the bush was talking to me, but it wasn't the bush. It was the groundskeeper who worked on campus who was working behind the bush, but I couldn't see him. And so when I was looking around, I'm like, did I know I didn't hear Bush just talk to me. I saw him raise his hand, which had a little shovel in it. And he raised it and he said, "Here, young man, right here, right here." And his name was Mr. Williams. I didn't know who he was until he introduced himself. But he says, "Come here." And he called me over to him. He said, "Hey, my name is Mr. Williams." He says, "I'm the groundskeeper here at the University of West Florida, one of the groundskeepers." He said, "I maintain the lawn and that kind of thing." But he also said that he did other things on campus. He was also the custodial worker because he dumped the trash and fixed the toilets and everything. He said he's also a maintenance man. So he was kind of like a utility man. He did everything on campus. And he was an older black gentleman. And so he's telling me this. He said, he asked me, because he called me over to him. He says, "Are you a student here at the University of West Florida?" I said, "Yes, I am." He says, "Well, that's great. That is awesome." He said, "Now, don't you quit. Don't you give up. You hang in there now." Very encouraging. He says, "Don't you quit. Don't you give up. You hang in there now." I said, "Well, sir, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I appreciate that." So he told me that, and I walked away feeling pretty good. I'm thinking, wow, complete stranger calls me over to him and encourages me. How cool is that? Now, I thought that was a great thing and a great gesture on his part. I thought it was a cool thing the first time he did it. But he did that every time he saw me. I'm talking about until I graduated. Now, and it started to bother me a little bit because I want you to imagine you work for a living, right? When you go to work, when you walk into your office, does anyone come up to you and say, "Okay, now don't you quit, don't you give up, I hope you hang in there now"? Because if they did, you would start wondering about your job, wondering, okay, am I safe? Is something bad's gonna happen? And so he was telling me that every time he saw me on campus. And if for some reason he didn't see me for a couple of days or so, he would ask me, he said, "Joe, how you doing?" So, "I'm doing all right, Mr. Williams." He said, "Joe, I hadn't seen you in a couple of days. Or you didn't give up, you didn't quit." And I said, "No, sir." He said, "Now don't you quit, don't you give up, you hang in there now." And he kept telling me that every single time he saw me. To the point I started getting upset, because I'm thinking, is this dude sniffing fertilizer? What's his problem? So anyway, I would even try to avoid Mr. Williams sometimes because he just avoid him telling me that every single time I saw him. Well, don't you know, when graduation time came about, we had about 2 weeks left before we had to graduate. And I had just been notified that I had graduated at the top of my university class. And I was voted Student of the Year. And they wanted me to give a student address, talk on behalf of the students at graduation. So I thought, how cool is that? So I said, let me tell Mr. Williams about this. This would be an awesome testimony to him. So I went to go see Mr. Williams. I looked for him this time. And I told him, I said, "Mr. Williams, I'm graduating on time. I'm graduating in 2 weeks. And I'm graduating top of my class, Student of the Year. This is awesome. I'm even going to give a short address to the audience." I said, "This is great. I just want to let you know." And he said, "Joe, that is awesome." And he said, and he congratulated me. And right when I was getting ready to leave, he says, "Joe, don't you quit, don't you give up, you hang in there now." Now I was livid. I'm like, Mr. Williams, why would you? I just told you I'm graduating. He said, yeah, Joe, but didn't you say you had 2 weeks left? He said, you still said you had 2 weeks left. I said, okay, Mr. Williams, I know that, but man, I'm going to graduate in 2 weeks. I said, why do you always tell me that? And he looked a little bit downcast after I questioned him. He said, Joe, I'm not trying to offend you. I said, I'm not offended. I just want to know why. He says, Joe, I've been on this campus for over 20 years as a groundskeeper, as a custodial worker, as a utility man, fix-it man, you call it, whatever you want to call it. He said, Joe, and I've seen a lot of students start here, especially students of color, who never completed their degree, who never finished school, they never graduated. He said, Joe, and it makes me very angry. Because, Joe, sometimes I feel like if I was in the classroom and I was a teacher, or if I was a president of the college, or the dean of academic affairs, or vice provost, he said, Joe, I would ensure students like you would graduate. He said, but Joe, I'm getting sick and tired of seeing students of color like you, especially young men, start here but never finish. So, Joe, I cried out to God before the semester started. I said, God, what can I do? I'm just a custodial worker. I'm just a groundskeeper. I'm just a utility man. I don't have the credentials. I never even finished college. I just barely have my GED. What could I possibly do to help these young men? He said, Joe, God spoke to my heart and told me, encourage. Encourage. Joe, it didn't make much sense to me when he told me that, but I figured I'd just obey him. So I figured when I went to work the next day, the first person I see, I would tell him. I would try to encourage him. He said, Joe, you were the first person I saw. And I figured, I'll start with him. Wow. I said, are you serious, Mr. Williams? He said, yeah, I figured I'd start with you. Guys, it's been now over, how many years? Man, 20-something years. I haven't seen Mr. Williams since. But I've been telling his story all over the country, all over the world, about how this one man said an encouraging word to me every day he saw me. And he's left a legacy. I can't remember all the professors I've had at the university. I can't remember all the other people I met at the university, but I have never forgotten Mr. Williams. So, man, I'm telling you that regardless of the position that you're in, leadership is not a position that you hold. It's a choice that you make. Let me say that again. Leadership is not a position that you hold. It's a choice that you make. Choose to be the spiritual leader of your home, not because it comes with a title, not because you have the credentials, because God chose you first. Okay? Choose to be the father and husband you were called to be. Choose to be the leader on your job, in your business, in the marketplace that you were called to be. Not because of title, because you've been chosen by God to do it. Guys, if this message has blessed you, please share this with another man who may be questioning his credentials instead of questioning his character. And he maybe needs to step up and realize that it doesn't take much to lead. All it takes is a choice to be a person of influence. So if this video has blessed you, please share with other men so it can bless them as well. And remember, we're males by birth, but we are men by choice. So choose to be the man that God called and created you to be, because a male is a terrible thing to waste. So until next time, be blessed, stay strong, and as always, stay in God's grip.